specifically. You'll notice, just kind of looking at the bundle at an overview, you'll notice that the provider is listed as a do nothing provider. What this means is that because there's nothing to physically provision at the parent level, it's basically a virtual or do nothing provider, and there's nothing to provision at that point. And you'll also see that here in the change logs, and we'll dive into the change logs a bit more in a minute here, but these change logs for a parent subscription and for that bundle, it's going to say not applicable because there's nothing to actually provision at the parent level, right? So this awaiting provisioning status will change and update to not applicable when it's finished syncing. Okay, so then reviewing the provider scenarios for different types of subscriptions. You know, these are license-based subscriptions, but they might have different providers, and that's what I wanted to review. So we're looking at this Exchange Online plan, and you'll see that the provider here is listed as Partner Center. What this means is that every time a quantity is changed for the subscription, it's going to be automatically provisioned by Partner Center, right? And you can see that in the change logs here. They were in awaiting provisioning status, and they've been updated automatically, and they've been provisioned in Partner Center, and they've been marked as provisioned in Work 365 as well. So it's important to note when you have an automatic provider like Partner Center, that process is a little bit different from a manual provider. Ismail, were you going to say something?
No, sorry, go ahead, Jason.
Okay. Okay, so when you're in a bundle and say you're looking at a child subscription of that bundle, just another navigation tip, you can go from the child subscription of that bundle and click on the parent subscription, and it will take you back to the parent subscription. Okay, so now we're looking at the parent subscription again, and I want to show the scenario for a manual provider here, right? So this subscription, SkyBlue Managed Backup for Office 365, we have a license tied to the subscription, but there's no automatic provider in this case, which means it's going to be a manual provider, and we would have to manually provision the license for that subscription. So what this means is anytime you have a manual provider, this could be you know, a third-party vendor that you're working with, it could be a distributor that you're working with, it could be possibly even your own IP. If there's a license that needs to be physically provisioned, it would be a manual provider in that case, and you would have to physically provision the license. So the recommended workflow for a manual provider, whenever you change that quantity amount, and in this case, the quantity amount was adjusted on the parent subscription, but for this child product, the quantity is 6 again to match that parent. After the quantity has been changed, what that means is you would have to go into that provider portal or distributor portal, you know, wherever the provider is, physically provision the license on that side or on their end, and then come back into Work 365. And then what you'll do is change the provisioning status to provisioned. Just another kind of tip on Dynamics in general, if you have more than one changelog that needs to be edited, you can do that in bulk by, you'll see I opened up a grid here, and this grid will open up a pop-up, and I can select all of the changelogs at once, and I can edit them, and then automatically, or not automatically, but I can change the status to provisioned here, right? And then I'll mark it as changed, and it will update the changelogs as provisioned. So then we can close that, and you'll see when we go back into the subscription, you'll see that they have now been updated, and the system knows that the subscription has been provisioned, right? So that's the recommended workflow when you have a manual provider, going into that provider portal, physically provisioning the license on that side, coming back into Work 365 and updating the changelog from awaiting provisioning status to a provision status, so the system knows that the subscription has been provisioned. as well as, you know, people within the organization, they need to know that the subscription has been provisioned as well. Okay.
I'll just make